William Samoei Arap Ruto is clearly out to capture parliament. He has already captured the judiciary. William Ruto has captured the church. Earlier today, Moses Wetangula, Papa wa Roma, who is the Speaker of the National Assembly, made the ruling that Kenya Kwanza is the majority party or coalition in parliament. And if you ask me, that ruling is going to have serious political implications in this country moving forward. In this video, I want us to look at three things. The first thing I want us to look at is the implication, the political implication the ruling will have in this country in future. Number two, why I strongly believe that the ruling is actually based on the fallout between Moses Wetangula and Raila Odinga. Wetangula is punishing Raila Odinga. And number three, the determination by William Ruto to ensure that he captures parliament. That ruling means, therefore, that the next majority leader of the National Assembly is going to be Kimani Ichung'wah. He's going to be deputized by Owen Baya, the Kilifi North Member of Parliament. The minority leader is going to be Opiyo Wandayi, deputized by the Wiper Member of Parliament, Robert Mbui. Then you go to the minority whip. The majority whip is going to be Silvanus Osoro, who is going to be deputized by Naomi Jilo, the Marsabit women representative. And then minority whip is going to be Junet Mohammed, the same role he played in the last parliament, deputized by Sabina Chege. While making that ruling, Moses Wetangula clearly made certain declarations. He accepted that indeed, according to the Register of Political Parties and the letter which she submitted, Azimio ought to have been the majority leader. But based on the fact that certain members of parliament and parties had entered into post-election post-election agreement, it means that they will now be considered. The truth of the matter is that according to the coalition agreement, majority of these members of parliament ought to have counted for Azimio because they were bound by some 6 months period, which is ending in the next few days, I think around 18 days. And I was asking myself why Azimio would not just let Kenya Kwanza rule, because what Azimio supporters don't want is a case where Azimio would be blamed in case there would be failure in Jubilee government, in Kenya Kwanza government. If they will succeed, the better. But any failure, they do not want to be associated with. So he made that declaration. And he also made the declaration that Azimio is a political party. And as a political party, Azimio does not have any single member of parliament in the current parliament, which means even if that letter by Register of Political Parties were to exist, Moses Wetangula would have still ruled otherwise. But let us begin by looking at the implications. The first implication of this particular ruling is that in future, it will be pointless for any political party to deposit any coalition agreement with the Registrar of Political Parties. Why am I saying this? One of the reasons why the idea of depositing agreement with the Register of Political Parties came was because previously there were those MOUs which were never honored. So when the new constitution was drafted and some legislations were made in parliament, they considered those betrayals. So to cure them, the agreement was that you enter into some either post-election or pre-election agreement. So that, for example, if Jubilee and ODM were to go as coalition, and then they agree that we are going to run as a coalition party, then ODM is going to produce a presidential candidate, Jubilee this. Then when we win the elections, Jubilee will produce this, ODM will produce this. So that when, for example, assuming Azimio had won, then Jubilee were going to claim whatever was deposited with the register of political parties. What this ruling means, therefore, is that a Speaker of the National Assembly can actually just disregard those documents like that. That's number one. Number two, it also means that in future, anybody or any party with money or with influence can actually determine who becomes the majority and the minority in parliament. For example, assuming Azimio had won the elections and UDA or Kenya Kwanza had the majority members of parliament the way they have, and assuming just they had the majority numbers in parliament, then it would mean that Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga would simply go to Mount Kenya and raid certain members of parliament. If the difference is 3, they'll just target 4 members of parliament or even 5, because power attracts people. These people will be easily attracted to power. And once that's happened, then the speaker will just rule because some few members of parliament, or they'll just target a particular party. So for me, this is going to be a serious matter in future as far as building of coalitions are concerned in this country. But why do I strongly believe that Moses Wetangula made this ruling the way he made it? Just because of politics. For me, number one, I tend to think that Wetangula wanted to punish Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta. And this was the right moment for him. You know, Wetangula was in NASA. Then he was part of, at some point, what was the name of the coalition, One Kenya Alliance, which was being pushed by President Uhuru Kenyatta. Then they went to Kenya Kwanza and left Uhuru Kenyatta because, according to them, Uhuru Kenyatta had made his mind to support Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga and the team were not really respectful. And remember, Weta was the minority leader in the Senate. He was removed. So he had a lot of beef to settle. So this was the right time. So this ruling, in my view, was not informed by any other thing. It was informed by the need to punish Raila Amolo Odinga. Number two, I also tend to think that Wetangula was actually under serious pressure from William Ruto to rule the way he did. Remember, in 2007, after Marende was elected the speaker, because that was one of the hotly contested, I think there was a difference of 1 or 2 votes which they kept on playing with. Once Marende sat on that seat, he served Kenyans as Marende and not as ODM supporter. And that's why most people still believe up to today that Marende was the best speaker. Justin Muturi will go in history as some of not so good speaker, but Wetangula is going to go on record as the worst speaker moving forward, because he will be serving the interest, apart from serving the interest of Kenya Kwanza, he will be serving the interest of William Ruto, and he will also try so hard to please William Samoei Arap Ruto because he's the speaker, courtesy of William Ruto. Number 3 is Kenya Kwanza game plan. You know, Kenya Kwanza won the presidency and they wanted the legitimacy to be seen to be the majority party. The truth is, majority of Maendeleo Chap candidates in Ukambani actually campaigned using Azimio platform, despite the fact that their party leader had gone the other side. The same can be said of PA party of Amason Kingi. In Kilifi, they campaigned using Raila Odinga's posters. They never campaigned under the platform of Kenya Kwanza. They even never attended William Ruto's rallies. Now, there's this UDM party of Northern Kenya. That party was part of Azimio. So the fact remains that Kenya Kwanza has a game plan to be seen to have the legitimacy based on numbers, which in real sense, it's Azimio which has those numbers. The third thing which I want us to look at is why William Ruto is keen on having majority leader from Kenya Kwanza, because if the law were to be followed, Azimio was only going to take this seat for 18 days. Then these parties were now going to be free to disembark and enter into some post-election agreement, and therefore everything was going to automatically change. But why do you think William Ruto would not wait for one more day? Number one, the influence. I think William Ruto is keen on influencing the committees in parliament. He wants to take control of those committees. The majority leader, the minority leaders, those are the people who will determine which committees, which members to sit in which committees, who chairs which committees. They'll have a lot of say based on standing orders in the National Assembly. So if, for example, in the 18 days, Azimio were going to have the leader of majority, it means within those days, they were going to determine who joins which committee, who becomes the leader, the chairperson, and the rest. And that's something which Ruto would not want, because within 18 days, I think he expects Parliament to, for example, vet his people, push certain legislation. So I think that's number one. Number two, William Ruto and Kenya Kwanza have some legislative agenda which they want passed in Parliament. The Hustlers Fund is there, the budget. So they can only advance their legislative agenda in case they control these committees. The work of Parliament is normally very clear and well defined, that they're supposed to oversight executive. What Ruto is doing and his team is that they want to make Parliament an extension of Parliament. And number three, I also tend to think that William Ruto has a bigger scheme or a wider scheme to capture Parliament. Once Parliament is captured, judiciary is captured, the church cannot speak, then Kenya can easily go back to where he wants it. Kanu era. And lastly, I think the vetting of cabinet secretaries is also informing this particular move. Committees will vet before taking the recommendations to Parliament. If the chair of a committee is anti-government, if, for example, Azimio were to be the majority leader, majority party, then it means they were going to have the majority in those committees. So during voting, they will actually vote probably against certain cabinet secretaries. Like Edwin Sifuna, the Secretary General of ODM, was very clear that Aisha Jomwa and Moses Kura are not fit. So ODM and Azimio were going to take that position, and probably during vetting, some of those guys were going to be kicked out just to score some politics. But now Ruto is keen on making sure that these people goes through, and that's why he's dictating. So I don't know what you think, but that's my take. Thank you guys, and may you have a good day. Bye-bye.